Let's talk about this story too. Also, an exclusive from the Daily Mail.
Oh boy.
You know, at least 63 people on Martha's Vineyard have tested positive for COVID-19 since Barack Obama's maskless 60th birthday bash, the most cases on the island since April. So I don't know if all of these people were at his party, to be fair. It's just on the island, but the island is not particularly big. This is a great story. Oh, I love it. Obama was like, I'm scaling back my party. It's still ridiculously massive. Celebrities are showing up. Erykah Badu is posting selfies. No one's wearing masks. And I'll tell you, you could go to church and they call it a super spreader event. You actually had, Cuomo in New York shutting down churches. This is the perfect example. I mean, I don't understand how... No, I'm sorry. I get it. Regular people, they'll see the news about Black Lives Matter protesting in the thousands. And then they're told, don't worry. According to the University of Colorado, it may have actually reduced the spread of COVID. That's right. Thousands of people standing shoulder to shoulder. Oh, yeah, because other people didn't want to go outside. But there's literally thousands of people outside right now. What are you talking? And people see that. I think there's people who love it. Authoritarians just love brutalizing people. And then you have regular people who are scared of being brutalized. So when they see these stories, they're just like, I better just say nothing, otherwise they'll come for me. And that's the problem we face. When it comes to that restaurant that was being harassed, they don't want to be politically active, and I can get that. I can understand why. But this is your warning, man.
Yeah, if you're using American money, you're politically active whether you want to be or not.
You may not want war, but war wants to find you. That's where it is ideologically.
You want to pull it down a little bit?
Yeah.
You can move it around.
Where we are right now, I think, is there was a time where you could disagree and that was it. But now you can't disagree. You have to go along with us. It's all about... and also, are your ideas so great if you have to be coercive and impose them on other people and you can't win with persuasion and argumentation? Yet, of course, words are violence, but actual violence is not violent.
I found that if you disagree and just say, I don't believe it, no, they get really mad. But if you offer a counterpoint that's very intuitive, often, especially in a one-on-one situation, they're receptive to it. But in the hordes and the masses, things can start to change. When you're dealing with crowds, it's a little more difficult.
This is a very creepy authoritarian time, right? Barack Obama announces his birthday party basically in defiance of all CDC regulation, and they don't bat an eye.
Shout out to Barack Obama for exercising his First Amendment right to congregate.
Yeah. Pandemic's over,
That's right.
baby.
That's right.
It's been that way the whole time, though. It's rules for me, not for thee. And I do think at a deep level, it's sort of just like thumbing their nose at the little people. And also, by the way, I mean, there's so many different knock-on effects to how this has increased the power of what I'll, cliche, use the term ruling class. Like all of the major corporations, many major corporations, massively increased their market share during this time where mom and pop companies got destroyed. You got forced into living remotely and then using Zoom, a Chinese product, of course. But even leaving that aside, we're in this atomized existence where everything is digital. So now you're using technologies of people who hate your guts and are going to collect infinitely more information on you as a consequence. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist or not. This is just what has happened. And then, like going out and, I'm going to go on a vacation wherever. I'm going to have a party, maskless, right, just before we do put the mask mandate in.
I'll tell you what it is. The elites are gathering up as much silverware as they can before the ship sinks, right? So we hit the iceberg. There's still some time to get to the lifeboat. They saw that hit and they said, grab as much as you can on the way out. And they're going to grab as much as they can because that is them running to the lifeboat before anyone else can and then leave and see you later, everybody.
I think it's even more insidious because it seems like they're moving our industry into these Chinese corporations that are using slave labor, and they're just like, whatever.
They steered us into the iceberg. They steer us into the iceberg and then laugh and then jump on the boat and leave.
The question at the end of the day is, so I think that China is the greatest foreign threat that we face, although I think that we are our own worst enemy right now. If you're a self-loathing country, if you're a country that says, forget about merit, forget about what an individual brings to the table, we're going to divide each other on a million different bases and be at each other's throats all the time and basically celebrate mediocrity as opposed to excellence and repudiate everything that we're built on, that'll kill us well before China even gets to us. We'll do their job for them. But that said, with the elites, they're now emulating China. Like, they've kowtowed to China for decades because they think, well, if we enter this marketplace, massive profits for us. And China, of course, has played us like a fiddle on that count. But now it's more of the emulation of like the American social credit system, or the social credit system with American characteristics, and the blending of big tech and the state, and using that power together.
I think you know how I would describe what's going on with the U.S. elites in China is kind of like a vampire, and this guy meets the vampire and he's like, I want the power of the vampire so I can take power over all the people, and they're like, we can grant you this power, but you will be subservient to us. And so these elites are like, this is my in, because in China, when you're in the party, you're set for life, no stress. Because I'll tell you this, in America, you're on a treadmill. And if you're walking, you're standing still. If you stop walking, you'll move backwards. You got to keep running to get ahead. Not when you're in the Chinese Communist Party. When you're in an authoritarian regime, you can finally sit back and say, I am secure in my power within reason. You still have to, do work. But man, it's hard. With competition, it is so hard. I remember when I was first starting in this industry, I had a guy telling me when I was 25, he was like, it's really great right now. Everybody loves you and they're praising you for all the work you're doing. And by the time you're in your 30s, there's going to be some young kid who develops some new technique and some new tech, and you're going to be chasing after him, and he's going to be rising, and you're going to be worried about your business going down. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll see. But I get the idea, right? The idea that there's always someone at your heels. So what these political elites, both Republicans and Democrats, are like, how do we just finally secure power in a way we don't have to worry about it anymore? Sell out to China.
Too bad, because what you did was worked harder and then hired those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're doing is they're tired of playing this game, right? What do? Every few years, it's phone call, raise money. Oh, could you imagine? I imagine there's some like Chinese communist guy and he's like sitting there with Mitch McConnell or whoever, and he's like, you wouldn't have to do any of this fundraising if you just joined the Communist Party or made one. And the Republican or Democrat, they're like, really? It's like, that's right. You would just have the power forever.
2-year term. What is going on? These people are in Congress for life. After 5 years, they get pensions for life. Come on.
Except for the occasional purges, where a couple million get thrown in jail every now and again.
Yeah.
That's the only. That's the one challenge that they have to deal with in their system. I agree, though.
I don't. Real quick, I don't know if that pension for life thing is true.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought.
Look it up.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up, but.
I think an element of this is, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, there was the theory that China is just going to overtake us, and so better to get on board with China and kowtow to them because you think that you'll maybe be one of the benighted party members someday.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
However, of course, it's those useful idiots who are the first ones that get lined up and shot in any revolution. And so there's that. And then also on domestically, let's say the woke ideology overtook every single institution, which it already has to a large extent, and they really ended up with their ideal endgame according to their tenets. Who would want to live in a country like that? The elites, they might be behind 50-foot walls with private security guards around them and stuff, but they can't send their kids to school. How is your life going to function? So I think it's short-sighted that authoritarian instinct ultimately is going to end up in a disastrous situation for them and their families.
Remember John Cena speaking Mandarin in that apology?
It's pathetic.
That says everything. These people have already been lining up at the door for China, for the money. You've got the NBA, you've got the video game companies. Anybody who, I'm sorry, man, I have a rather negative view of where this country's headed because it's been decades now where we've been, as Ian pointed out, sending away our manufacturing base, our industry, the core of this country being extracted and sent off overseas, not just to China, but other countries as well, and even Mexico. That's been happening for so long. Trump tries turning that around to a great deal, and he succeeded in many ways, and they weaponize the media institutions to crush it.
You notice the greatest attacks on Trump usually came from the national security and foreign policy and intelligence apparatus, and those were the areas where he was upsetting the apple cart probably to a greater degree than anywhere else. Yes, they hated a million different things about him. They hated him aesthetically, I think he grated on them.
Oh, yeah.
But they also really hated the fact that he threatened their power and privilege because he tried to undo the establishment, progressive, Wilsonian, however you want to describe it, national security and foreign policy. He was a threat they perceived him as a threat to their power and privilege.
The people who are voting in more of the uniparty, and I don't just mean Democrats, it's like McConnell saying we need more troops in Afghanistan. There are a lot of populist right individuals now who are running for that we're going to see in the midterms, which is really cause for optimism. But the uniparty itself, look, the neocons fled to the Democratic Party when Trump got elected, and then all of a sudden the Democrats became that tower or whatever. I just think it's hilarious, the idea that you have people voting in their own destruction while thinking they're not, thinking they're the ones who aren't, they're not paying attention. And it's funny, when you look at the polls, independent voters and Republican voters think the economy is doing bad. Well, I think by most metrics, they would be correct. The Democrats think the economy is doing fairly good, which by most metrics makes literally no sense unless you're in a cult. Isn't that funny? But what the media is able to do is they're able to point to the fringest of Trump supporters to claim that represents all of, anyone who's anti-Democrat or anti-establishment is that one small fringe of the diehard Trump supporter, And then you get these people that are effectively voting in their own serfdom. This is what I think. I think it's kind of funny. Like in the end, I don't think necessarily. Or let me put it this way: I'm not worried. I'm not worried about myself. I think if the country falls apart, if we end up with some internal conflict, civil conflict, or something like that, it would suck really bad. I think China would then easily just sweep across, crush our allies, take over everything, and become the dominant empire. And that seems to be like what will happen, considering what's happening in this country. And I know that I will survive. I'm confident in my abilities. I've been homeless before. I'm not all that worried. I think it'll be an adventure. But I'll tell you, these people in the cities are going to cry a deep cry. They will sob a sob they've never sobbed before. If they only could see the future as to what they are going to bring to their countrymen, to the men and women of this nation, man, I'm not going to pretend like voting Republican gets you out of the problem either. It's like the Republicans are the speed bump, the Democrats are the ones setting fire to the building in the first place. So I don't know what you do, but I think when all the bricks come tumbling down, I don't know, life will suck for the most part. Mostly conservatives will probably be fine. Urban liberals will probably be in very serious...
I don't know if that's even safe to say, because if we're really headed towards what you're talking about... if you play Fallout, the theme is 2060, there's a war between America and China. I'm worried about that, a nuclear war. Then I'm worried about an artificial intelligence war, a robot war, where they have drones flying around, patrolling the skies, shooting at anything that moves. People are running from building to building all over Earth. That's and then no human at that point will be safe. That's very likely if we don't get our stuff together right now as a race. That is very possible as a future option.
We're going that route, man.
We're going many routes at once, but that is one of them.
The drones in the sky, AI seeking out, Skynet and stuff. Maybe not too far-fetched considering what they already have with the Reaper drones and stuff like that. But I don't think they have enough of them for a country as large as the United States.
But they can make drones that can make drones. When AI is working 24/7 and doesn't get tired,
someone has to bring the supplies to them. It's not that simple.
I don't know, man.
Maybe in 30 to 50 years we might have the infrastructure for. Look, someone's got to mine the materials.
Right. But 10 years go by, and then it's only 20 to 40 years, and then another 10 years go by, what have we done?
When we can solve the mining problem of how we got humans in sulfur mines and things like that, then there'll be a big change. For the time being, it's a human task. Mm-hmm. And then
they'll probably be mining asteroids.
And then you might have a self-driving truck delivering the materials to the AI. But I don't think that's the issue. I think that's something to be concerned about. No, I think the bigger issue is the economy just crumbles.
That's the short-term problem.
Yeah, and I'm saying if the economy crumbled right now, and you'd go to the store and a gallon of milk was $100, and there was like 3 available, and people are fighting over a can of beans in the parking lot, I think I'd be fine. I wouldn't be happy, I wouldn't be comfortable, and I wouldn't pretend like I'm going to be sitting atop a throne or anything. No, it would be a constant battle for survival when there's like limited goods and no fuel. But the people in the cities and the suburbs, they ain't going to be having a good go. They're going to be in the parking lot fighting for beans with Agnes. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.